When I was in high school, one of the scariest things a teacher ever told me was that the world is very unforgiving to failure. And that was probably one of the first quotes I had as I was leaving school. And it stayed with me for such a long time, and it created a desperation for success that stays with me till today. And this is probably the mental state that the vast majority of boys are consistently in. That mental state of you need to achieve. Not you have to achieve, not you should achieve, but you need to achieve. Because society is very unforgiving to boys that are failures. And it is very easy for a boy to fall off the social ladder. And when he starts to fall off that social ladder, he can fall so far to the point that he is homeless and is living on the street, regardless of how high he was on that social ladder to begin with. And this is a fear that all boys have, and it's a fear we carry into manhood, and it's a fear that stays with us for the rest of our lives. That consistent need to achieve pushes guys to do things that are ruthless, that are cunning, that can be hurtful for other people. The need to achieve is rooted so deeply in our character that if we do not achieve, we do not feel worthy of life. And that's why you have a lot of young men taking their lives, simply because they have not yet figured out how to succeed in this ever-changing world. And so the question is, how do you create a world in which even if a boy does not achieve the level of success that he might want or that society might demand of him, how do you still create a world that is still welcoming to the average man? Because in today's world, and I'm so fucking tired of listening to all of these motivational speakers talk negatively about mediocrity. And the reason why I'm so tired of hearing them talk about it is because whether people like it or not, being average is going to be the life for 90% of people, for the vast majority of people. Being average is going to be your life. And even though we all succeed, and even though we all somehow wake up tomorrow morning and excel, the problem with the world and the problem with society and the problem with life in general is that the goalpost will be moved, whether you like it or not. The goalpost will be moved. And once it is moved, everybody goes back to being average. And only a few people will be held as exceptional, whether we like it or not. So even though we all succeed, society will still find a way to find the people who are just a tenth more successful than everybody else and exalt those people and hold those people to high regard and high esteem. And so if we do not create a world where it is okay for a boy to be normal, where it is okay for a boy to not achieve what Bill Gates has achieved, where it is okay for a boy to have an average life, there are going to be considerably more boys who are unable to accept their reality. And because they're unable to accept that reality, they will simply take their lives, simply because they believe that if they are not the Andrew Tates, if they are not the Bill Gates, if they are not the Warren Buffetts, if they're not the best guys in their society, if they're not the best people around, if they're not that, then they are not worthy of life. And that can be very detrimental to society. So until we normalize being average, and until we get a lot of these gurus out of our brains and accept and appreciate the world for what it is, because whether we want to admit it or not, the people who achieve a certain level of hyper unrealistic success, those people have a lot they have sacrificed for that success. There is a lot that has been sacrificed for that success, but nobody will tell you about the real sacrifices that happen behind a lot of that success. Some of these men have sacrificed their time with their families, time with their children. Some of these guys have never spent a birthday with any of their kids simply because they were working their asses off. And so if you are comfortable being the guy who misses birthday parties simply because you're stuck in the office and you want to triple your returns for the next quarter, if you are the guy who chooses not to go on holiday with your wife because you want to stay in the office to quadruple your returns for the next quarter, and then make a video about it of how hardworking you are, feel free. Don't drag everybody in it with you. Because whether we like to admit it or not, a lot of the success advice you get, and this is going to break your heart, but 90% of the success advice you get, 90% of it from 90% of the people who talk to you about success, will not work for you. It will not work for you because the one thing that successful people are incompetent at is telling you the details that ensured their success and that might not ensure yours. Because there are things that happened in a lot of these people's everyday lives that positioned them strategically to be able to achieve some of the successes they have achieved. And those things, I kid you not, cannot be replicated. You cannot replicate the country you were born in. You cannot replicate the family that you had. You cannot replicate the mentors that you were privileged to have around you when you were growing up. You cannot replicate your brain. You cannot replicate your creativity. You cannot replicate any of those things. And so for me, my focus is to create an environment, at least on a mental level, that assures boys that regardless of what you achieve in life, you, my guy, are enough. You are worthy of life. Peace.